Okay, first part of the bullshit that's going on here. So, APR, driver side, winglet. These are the 3 holes that go into those in the wheel well. The screws that go through have a fairly large flange or washer on the end of them. I'm not sure if this is intended, but it does not look right. The washers just kind of hang out in no man's land. Like if you look at what this is the best one of the 3, is bearing on like a bit of a vertex there. I kind of just, sorry, trying to get the light, but where is it supposed to bear in on here? Like how do you tighten this thing up without crunching into the clear? And what kind of angle are we supposed to be coming out? Like that? Like, I don't know. Same story. For this one, it's worse. Right on the curve of this little embedded boss here. Like it does, like what is that? Where is it supposed to go? Last one. This hole is hopeless to try to get to line up. It's embedded in there, but are we looking for that kind of gap there? Maybe this is the best one, I don't know. Anyway, comes out of here, kind of whichever angle it decides. It's pretty hard to orient these things in any way. So when you go to actually put this thing up in here, you can see here that hole, and this spat is located where it's going to go. This I've left out because I've already snapped one of the pins off in here because this thing's so tight. This gap will shrink up a tiny bit if I absolutely force this thing into the 2 pins, but this spat is located from a, I can get the other one, but it's located on a bearing face here that's part of the spat, and it wedges up against a piece of the trim. Makes sense. So in a way that locates the spat counterclockwise. Likewise down here, you can hear this thing is tight up. There's a little foot. You kind of see it there, right there. There's a foot that sits up flush to the underside of the fairing, or whatever you want to call it. And that wants to sit flush because you put a bolt through here. You're supposed to. The bolt hole on this spat is way out of alignment, so you have to Dremel it out to even get a chance. But the bolt is supposed to come up and bear this little foot on the underside. So between the foot here and the tab here, that locates this whole thing clockwise, counterclockwise. These pins here, if there is any play here, these pins would help. But the way that this thing is built, off the last video by accident there, but the way that this thing is built, the dimension from the foot here and the pins or the slots here in the spat is too large, and you can see that because you can see right here, right, hard to do with one hand, right there on the left side of this slot, on the left side of my finger, the pin is digging into the clear coat here. The pin on the inside of the fender is digging into the clear. So if these slots were clocked a bit this way, counterclockwise, then yeah, you'd have a hope of getting this thing in without breaking something. I don't know if I can accurately hold this. Well, I won't be able to do this accurately enough to matter. I'll just show you putting the old one in. But if these were counterclockwise a little bit, then yeah, you could get this thing up in here. But despite that, and I did shove this thing in and I broke one of these pins off, unfortunately. You can see I can kind of close up the gap, but you're still left with a fat 1/8 of gap there. So from here outwards, this thing's out. There's nothing you can do about that. Likewise, from here downwards, this dimension is actually correct from the foot to the tab here. This part is correct, and actually the holes are in the right spot in the spat. So that's okay. But when you go to try to put this hunk of junk in there, like there's just no possible way to get that sucked in. Either sucked in enough towards the front of the car, one, because of the fitment of the bolt, of the holes, sorry, the washers in these bosses. You can see the clear right there. Right there. See, chipping away because of the washer. You have to somehow thread the needle with the screws to get them through this, that, and then into the fairing clips. And the bolts aren't long enough because they can't sink in all the way through to a bearing face on here. I don't know what the GM ones look like, but I can't imagine they look like this. So you've got like 3 different problems with this piece. Is that the bearing faces here don't allow the bolts to extend long enough to thread into the fairing. I keep saying fairing, but whatever. And then as well, like there's something in this direction, like that's just out. So it's hard to, it's kind of aligned there. But there's a gap. It might not be quite that big or something like that, but there's a gap there that exists and you can't do anything about it just due to the dimension between the center line of these holes and the mating face here on this flange. This is too large, and I think the angles are a bit out as well. So with all that said, you're also left with a gap here at the end, because like I'm pulling this thing forward, like that's it, there's no more. Like even without bolts, doesn't matter. Like you're not getting this thing any more further sucked in than that. That's actually about where it sits when you finally do manage to get one of these screws through. On the underside, I'm not sure what it looks like, but let me see. Oops. I'll have to take a photo to try to get an idea of what the slots are doing, but you can see my finger. That's where my finger is. Maybe not too far out from that hole. So I don't know what's going on here, but they don't work. Okay, hopefully the last one. So I've got this thing just kind of pinned in here. I can't actually thread these in, but this is the best I can get them. Just sort of locating this thing loosely side to side. This is the wrong bolt, but it's a bit longer, so it kind of gets it in there. Anyway, you can see here there's and note that this thing isn't tightened in, so it would get sucked forward probably 1/8 of an inch this way once all this gap is removed. So you can see right here that however this thing is oriented this way or this way, there's really just barely an air gap here between the outside of the spat, the flange of the spat, and this thing. So maybe it's rotated a bit, but if you suck this thing forward to the front of the car, then you're going to have you might have some real nice rubbing from the inside of this thing to that. I don't know if that's intentional or okay or not, but anyway, maybe that's fine. But regardless, like you've got to come forward more than 1/8, and like this gap isn't going to disappear no matter what you do, because right now, like, and you can see with the holes here that this is where it is. Like these are more or less locating it inside and outside of the center line of the car. So you can crunch it in maybe, but then what are you doing? You're impinging on the spat, and you can kind of shove it in, but not too much, that's as best as I can get using considerable pressure from my right hand here. And that's with the flanges parallel. Bit of a gap there, maybe not too bad. But regardless, like you can't bring it in anymore. That's it. So I don't know what to do here. So this video, YouTube series, this will be taking this one out very carefully and putting the new one in. So you can see, see that the new one goes in. You see a little bit of I rubbed a bit of the white off there, but that's where the tab is impinging. Go over there. This one. The OEM one is a bit easier because it's a more flexible material. So it makes it easier in this regard.
Back in?
Getting the old one back in here.
Yeah.
Like that thing.
There we go.
Back in place, easy peasy.